Hi.
Today I'm going to show you how to change wheels on an electric skateboard. I'm going to be demonstrating on a belt drive electric skateboard. If your board uses hub motors, this video is not really for you. So what do you need? Obviously you're going to need your electric skateboard and you're going to need your new set of wheels. I'm going to be demonstrating using the 120mm cloud wheels. You're going to need pulleys that are compatible with your wheels because the pulleys that came on your board may or may not be compatible with the wheels that you're going to switch to. You're going to need a skate tool and you might need a flathead screwdriver. You may or may not need it. Oh, one more thing. If you have a little container, this is going to be really useful because it's going to be really easy to lose stuff like this. Your board may or may not use these, but these are so easy to lose. I lose these all the time. So it's best if you have a little pan that you can just... Oh, and if you have an extra set of wheels or something to prop up the board sideways, you'll see what I mean in a bit. Okay, let's get started. I'm gonna put my board sideways. Now with some boards it's gonna be able to stand on its side and on others it's gonna tip over. So this one is gonna tip over, so I happen to have a stack of wheels that I'm not using, so I'm just gonna put it here. Next we're gonna take off all 4 wheels. So just get out your skate tool and there's gonna be like 3 different, oh man, I don't know what these are called, sockets. One of them's gonna fit on the nut here. So if one doesn't fit properly, just try another one. One of them will fit, and then you just... Remember the pan? Put the skate hardware in the pan so you don't lose it. And then the wheels should just come off. Now be careful, on each side of the wheel, there may be a little washer. Here's another one. Be careful not to lose them. You might have a different type of bearing. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, this one uses washers. Another kind doesn't. Let's take a look at this one. So now I'm taking off one of the drive wheels. This is going to be a little bit different from the front wheel. Again, here is a washer in the pan. Okay, so this came off really easily, but it won't always come off this easily. If it doesn't come off easily, just try to keep on wiggling it and it should eventually come off. And also, when it comes off, it might come off with the pulley or it might come off without the pulley. So right now it came off without the pulley. The pulley is still here. So now I need to remove this pulley because I'm going to change it to a different one. So to take off the pulley, you just keep on pulling the pulley out and spin it at the same time. And eventually it'll just come out. There. Okay, now with some pulleys, there's going to be an extra washer. Be careful not to lose it. Some boards won't have this, but some boards have it, so just keep that in mind. Put it in the pan. Now let's do the other side. Put it in the pan. Again, remember there are washers, or there may be washers, there may not be washers. If there are washers, put them in the pan. Okay, the washer could be stuck here on the bearing or it could be on the axle. So in this case, it's on the axle. So here I'm taking the washer off the axle and putting it in the pan. And now let's do the other drive wheel. Nut in the pan, washer in the pan. Again, I'm pulling the pulley outward and also spinning it at the same time. And remember, pan. Now we're gonna put on these cloud wheels and I'm gonna change the pulleys. You see how these are different? These are the ones that came with the board and this one is what I need to use for the cloud wheels. And that's because the cores are different. You see how these cores are not the same? So there are different size pulleys. In my case, I'm using the same size. If you use different size pulleys, I do have a video about how to adjust belt tension. That'll show you how to do it basically. So if you're changing to another pulley that's the same size, meaning the same number of teeth, here's how you put it on. Slip it on and then start spinning. You see how the belt grabbed the teeth, or the teeth grabbed the belt, or you know, whatever. You just keep spinning and push it down. So I'm going to show you again when I do the other side, but yeah, this is how you do it. Remember there was a washer that came with the pulley, so I'm going to go ahead and put that on. And now, I was going to put on a wheel, but there's no bearing inside. So what are we going to do? We're gonna take off the bearing from the original wheels and put them on the new wheels. How do you take off the bearings? Let's come back to the front truck. We're gonna use the axle to pop off the bearings. So just stick a bearing onto the axle, doesn't matter which one. Just stick it in and then wiggle.
Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
Just keep on wiggling until it comes off. So you see the bearing came off. You saw that a spacer also came off. So go ahead and put these where? Pan. And then do the same thing with the other side. Stick it in there and wiggle.
Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
Wiggle until, oops, it didn't come off. Wiggle until it comes off. There. Now it's off. This is gonna be easier on some wheels and a little bit more difficult on some wheels. Don't worry about it. I don't know why. On some it's just really, really tight and you have to wiggle it more. So let's do it for all 4 wheels in the pan. That happens sometimes. In the pan. In the pan. Last wheel. Now I'm going to show you how to put those bearings onto the wheel. So we're going to need the front truck to put on the bearings. Put a bearing onto the truck and have the outside of the wheel go on first. So you put the wheel on and you just push it down so that the bearing goes into the I don't know what to call it, bearing slot, I guess. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other side. But the other side is going to be a little bit different. You need to put on a bearing and also the spacer. I'll give you a closer look. So here's the bearing and here is the spacer. So bearing and then spacer. And then this wheel, this side already has the bearing, so you do the other side now. Push down, now it's on. So now we just do that for the rest of the wheels. Let me show you again. Put on a bearing, put on a wheel. Now the bearing is on. Put on another bearing, put on a spacer, push down, and that's it. There is another type of bearing that's really common and it's going to be a little bit easier, but I'll show you that a little bit later. Now on this wheel, you can see that this bearing didn't go all the way in. You can just either push it in or it doesn't matter. Later on, you're going to tighten the nut and that's going to push it in also. So now let's go ahead and put on the wheels. So these wheels and bearings came with these little washers. You're going to put a washer on first and then you put on the wheel. The spacer inside the wheel, it might not be centered. So if it's not centered, you're not going to be able to put on the wheel. Well, okay, I got lucky there, but if the spacer is off center, normally you're not going to be able to put the... I got lucky again. But anyway, if you're not able to put the wheel on, just take your skate tool. Your skate tool will normally have a screwdriver included. So just go ahead and take that out. Stick that in the wheel, in the middle, I don't know the technical terms for these things, but like the axle slot or whatever. Keep the spacer centered and then put the wheel on. Before you put on the nut, remember to put on the other washer. Whoops. So washer goes on and then the nut goes on. So this part is kind of important. How tight are you supposed to make this? So just keep on tightening until you feel some extra, there's always going to be a little bit of resistance because because these are nylock nuts. That means that there's a little bit of rubber on these nuts. That's so that they don't slip out. So there's always going to be a little bit of resistance, you won't be able to tighten using your fingers, you have to use a tool. But at some point when you tighten, there's going to be a point where you can't really tighten anymore. Like right now. Now what I can do is I can make it super tight, but you don't want to do that. Once you reach that point where it doesn't want to go any further, the general rule of thumb is to loosen a little bit and then you're done. I like to take this one step farther. Once I've tightened it to where there's resistance, I like to loosen it by about a quarter turn and then shake the wheel. Move the wheel side to side along the axle. So right now I can hear that the wheel is still moving a little bit side to side. Now let me loosen this more to exaggerate it. So right now the wheel is moving side to side along the axle a lot, right? So obviously this is too loose. Now you also don't want it to be too tight because let me show you what happens if it's too tight. So now it's really tight. And when it's really tight, okay, this is a bad example. If it's too tight, you're gonna have increased rolling resistance on these wheels, so you don't want it to be too tight. I like to loosen it up a little bit and then re-tighten a little bit at a time until it doesn't move side to side at all, or very little. Okay, you see how little I'm turning at a time? So I'm turning just a tiny bit. Okay, there. So that's how I do it. You don't have to be that precise. Again, the general rule of thumb is to just tighten until there's resistance and then loosen it up. If you loosen it too much, it's usually okay. The main issue there is that while you're riding, you might hear the wheel moving side to side and it'll be kind of noisy and annoying. Now let's do the drive wheel. Oh, okay, I have to take this off, this belt cover. So I actually need an extra tool. I like having these foldable hex key sets. I just think they're really convenient. So the reason I'm taking off this cover is because this wheel is too big and this cover is in the way. Now that this cover is off, I can now put on this wheel. And then just, yeah, it just goes on like that. Washer, nut. Oh, this is really close to the belt. No, it's actually okay. So I was concerned that the wheel might be touching the belt because that happens sometimes, depending on what wheel you're using, but there's actually a little bit of space, and that's enough actually. As long as there's space, then it's fine. If the wheel is rubbing the belt, then you just need to add washers. Okay, now let's do the other side. Let's do the front wheel. Remember, washer, put on the other washer, put on the nut, tighten until there's resistance, and then I'm gonna loosen it a little bit, tighten a little bit at a time. Good enough. Okay, let's move on to the final wheel. You just slip the pulley on and then start rotating it, and the belt will grab the pulley. Push down while you're turning. There. Oh, I forgot to tell you why you might need the flathead screwdriver. When you were removing the wheels, on some wheels and some pulleys, you might get a situation where the pulley is stuck inside of the wheel. Sometimes it's going to be really hard to pull out the pulley from the wheel, and in that case, you just use a flathead screwdriver and just try to pry it out. It's not always going to be this easy. Anyway, let's continue. Washer. Oh. Put on this wheel, washer, nut, tighten until there's resistance, and then loosen about 1/8 of a turn. And there, that's it. Pretty easy, huh? Oh yeah, I was gonna show you the other type of bearing. Most skate bearings look like this. And I'm showing you another kind that's also very common. So this is another kind. You see how it's different? This other bearing has the spacer and the washer built in. You see how this is totally flush? But here, this has this part sticking out and this part also sticking out. So this part sticking out essentially takes the place of the washer. The washer is there because if you don't have that washer there, then the nut is just directly touching the bearing. Now that might be okay on some bearings, but on others, it's gonna slow down the wheel. So that's what the washer is there for. Actually, I think for skateboards, they call these speed rings. I think it's kind of a funny name. I mean, it's a washer. Yeah, they call them speed rings, I think. But anyway, yeah, on this other type of bearing, the speed ring is already built in. See that? Half of the spacer is built in also. So when you have two of these two half spacers, they become the same size as a regular spacer. So I actually prefer to use these because there's no speed rings to deal with. There's no spacer to deal with. It's just two bearings. But I'm gonna save these for another board. These are from BOA, by the way. They also make wheels. You can also get these types of bearings from Zealot and, no, sorry, not Zealot, Zealous. I think seismic bearings are also like that. I hope that has been helpful. I made this video because the weather sucks again. I still have other boards that I need to review. The rainy season stopped, but now we have a typhoon. So anyway, if you have any questions, leave a comment. If I did anything wrong, leave a comment.
Wiggle, wiggle.